Welcome to Mindful Moments. Nourish your mind on the go. This audio uses AI narration to present our original book analysis.
Cool.
Today we're diving deep into The Death and Life of the Great American School System by Diane Ravitch.
All right.
This book is really a fascinating journey, not just through the American education system, but also through the author's own shifting perspectives on reform.
Yeah, it's quite a journey indeed. Ravitch, a historian and former Assistant Secretary of Education, starts out embracing ideas like school choice and charter schools believing they hold the key to fixing what ails public education.
She even saw those concepts as potential answers for problems facing minority students in New York back in the late 60s and early 70s. So what happened? When did those views begin to change?
Well, as we move into the 90s, the educational landscape starts to shift. The standards movement gains traction, and the focus turns towards standardized testing, culminating in the No Child Left Behind Act, or NCLB, as it's commonly known.
And Ravitch initially supported these developments.
She did.
Seeing the potential for positive change. But she soon became one of the most vocal critics of NCLB, arguing that the emphasis on standardized testing had a detrimental effect on education.
It really did.
What were some of the specific issues she raised?
One of her main criticisms was that NCLB led to a narrowing of the curriculum. Subjects like art, music, and social studies were often pushed aside as schools prioritized math and reading in an effort to boost test scores.
Interesting.
Ravitch argued that this created a system that valued rote memorization and test-taking strategies over true learning and critical thinking.
So instead of fostering a love of learning, the system became about meeting these arbitrary metrics.
Exactly.
It seems like a classic case of unintended consequences. But Ravitch didn't just critique the policies. She also looked at how they played out in real-world settings,
Absolutely. She examines a couple of compelling case studies in the book. District 2 in New York City, for example, was touted as a model of success back in the 90s with its implementation of a program called balanced literacy. This approach was supposed to bridge the gap between phonics and whole language approaches to reading instruction, and initially, test scores did go up.
But Ravitch's analysis revealed a more complex picture.
It did.
It wasn't just the teaching methods contributing to the higher scores. A significant factor was the changing demographics of the district. Gentrification was bringing in more affluent families, shifting the student population.
That's a crucial point. It raises the question, can we truly consider a reform successful if it relies on demographic shifts that are beyond the control of most schools? It's like claiming victory in a race where you've secretly been given a head start.
So focusing solely on outcomes like test scores without considering the context can be misleading.
Definitely.
And this leads us to the other case study Ravitch explored, San Diego, which tried to replicate the District 2 model. What happened there?
San Diego, under Superintendent Alan Burson, adopted balanced literacy and a constructivist approach to math, heavily influenced by that District 2 model. However, the implementation was quite different. Burson took a very top-down, aggressive approach. And teachers felt pressured and micromanaged.
It sounds like the focus on achieving certain outcomes overshadowed the human element. Were the teachers resistant to the new methods themselves, or was it more about the way those changes were imposed?
It seems the resistance stemmed more from the implementation style. Teachers felt demoralized, like they were being punished if test scores didn't immediately rise. It created a culture of fear rather than collaboration, which ultimately undermined the reform efforts.
It highlights the importance of taking a holistic approach to education reform, considering not just the data, but also the impact on those involved, the teachers, the students, the entire school community.
Exactly. And this human-centered approach is something Ravitch emphasizes throughout the book. She challenges the idea that schools can be run like businesses where efficiency and measurable outcomes are the primary goals.
Which brings us to another significant shift in her thinking, her evolving views on school choice and charter schools. She initially saw them as potential solutions, but later became more critical.
And her analysis goes beyond just saying whether these models are good or bad. She delves into the complexities, examining both the successes and failures.
Take charter schools, for example. Some, like the KPP schools, with their longer school days and rigorous approach, have shown impressive results. But Ravitch also points out that they have high attrition rates and might attract a particular type of student and family. It's a model that's not easily replicable or scalable.
It's about recognizing that there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. What works in one context might not work in another.
And it's this nuanced approach, this willingness to look beyond the simple narratives that makes Ravitch's work so valuable. She doesn't offer easy answers, but instead encourages us to engage in critical thinking about these complex issues.
Absolutely. And her own journey from reform advocate to champion of public education demonstrates the importance of staying open to new information and revising our beliefs based on evidence and experience.
Now, before we move on to explore Ravitch's critique of the role of philanthropy in education reform, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've covered so far. What resonates with you? What questions or thoughts does this spark about the current state of education? We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into this thought-provoking book.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Diane Ravitch's The Death and Life of the Great American School System.
All right, so
Let's pick up where we left off and explore
yeah,
a facet of education reform that often gets overlooked: the influence of philanthropy.
it's an area Ravitch cackles head-on in a chapter she aptly titles The Billionaire Boys Club, examining how foundations often led by extremely wealthy individuals have poured billions into shaping the course of American education.
And it's important to note that her analysis goes beyond simply criticizing these philanthropic endeavors.
So she's not just saying all billionaires are evil and they're trying to, destroy public education for their own nefarious purposes.
She acknowledges that many of these foundations genuinely aim to improve education.
Right.
But their approach, she argues, often reflects a top-down perspective that lacks a real understanding of the complexities on the ground.
So it's not just about good intentions, it's also about how those intentions translate into action.
Exactly. A great example is the Annenberg Challenge.
A
massive billion-dollar initiative to promote school reform across the country.
Huge.
While ambitious, Ravitch argues that it ultimately had little impact.
What contributed to that lack of impact? Was it a case of spreading the resources too thin or a lack of a cohesive vision?
It seems to be a combination of factors. The Annenberg Foundation took a rather hands-off approach, funding a wide array of projects.
So they just kind of threw money at it and hoped for the best?
Well, they funded projects, but without a central strategy or a way to measure whether these investments were truly making a difference.
So it's not just about throwing money at a problem. You need a clear plan, a focused approach, and a way to assess the effectiveness of your efforts.
Right. Have other foundations learned from this experience?
Yeah, have they?
Some have, like the Gates Foundation. They've adopted a more strategic approach, focusing on specific areas like charter schools, smaller high schools, and teacher effectiveness.
But as we've discussed, Ravitch is critical of some of those strategies as well. However, at least there's an attempt to learn and adapt. Based on data and feedback. Which seems like a step in the right direction.
Indeed, and this highlights a crucial point Ravitch makes. Philanthropy has a significant role to play in education reform, but it needs to be carried out thoughtfully, collaboratively, and with a willingness to acknowledge that there are no quick fixes.
And it's crucial to remember that these foundations, however well-intentioned, aren't accountable to voters in the same way that elected officials are.
That's very true.
This raises important questions about their influence on public education and whether a small group of individuals should wield such power in shaping the direction of our schools.
It's a debate that continues to this day.
For sure.
What's clear from Ravitch's analysis is that philanthropy is a force to be reckoned with in the world of education. We need to understand its impact, both positive and negative, and engage in informed discussions about its role.
Now, as we head into the final chapters of Ravitch's book, there's a noticeable shift in focus. She moves from critiquing various reform efforts to advocating for a return to what she calls the fundamentals of good education.
And when she talks about fundamentals, she's not advocating for a nostalgic return to some idealized past. It's about refocusing on those core principles that have always been at the heart of effective education.
Things like knowledgeable and well-supported teachers. A curriculum that's rich and engaging, and a learning environment that fosters curiosity and a love of learning. It seems like she's arguing that in our pursuit of data and measurable outcomes, we've lost sight of what truly matters.
That's precisely her point. She argues that the obsession with testing and metrics has come at the expense of developing critical thinking, creativity, and a genuine love of learning in students.
And she draws on her own extensive experience.
She does.
As a teacher, a historian, and a policymaker, to make a compelling case for a more holistic, human-centered approach to education.
She challenges us to think beyond just test scores and ask ourselves, what does it truly mean for a student to succeed? Are we preparing them not just for the workforce, but for life, for active citizenship,
Right.
for the ability to navigate a complex world?
Now, before we conclude our exploration of Ravitch's insights, there's one more thought-provoking idea. We need to unpack her proposition for a national curriculum.
Oh, yeah.
It's sure to spark debate, but it's worth considering, especially given the fragmented and often inconsistent curricula we see across different schools today.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Diane Ravitch's The Death and Life of the Great American School System. As we wrap up our exploration, let's tackle one of Ravitch's most thought-provoking propositions. The idea of a national curriculum.
It's definitely a controversial topic.
Yeah, it is.
Some see it as a potential solution for inconsistency.
Yeah.
And a way to raise the bar for all students.
Right.
While others worry about federal overreach and potential political battles over content.
Ravitch acknowledges those complexities, but she believes the potential benefits outweigh the risks.
Okay.
She argues that a well-defined national curriculum, focusing on the liberal arts and sciences, could provide a much-needed framework for ensuring all students graduate with a shared understanding of key concepts and historical events.
So it's not about dictating exactly what should be taught in every classroom across the country, but rather setting a high bar for essential knowledge and skills.
Exactly.
What would that look like in practice?
She envisions a curriculum rich in history, literature, science, and civics, the building blocks for informed and engaged citizenship. Imagine a generation well-versed in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the pivotal moments that shaped our nation.
It's about fostering that cultural literacy, that common ground
Exactly.
that allows for meaningful dialogue and debate.
It is.
And she seems particularly passionate about the role of literature in this national curriculum.
Absolutely.
Okay.
She emphasizes the importance of deep dives into significant literary works. Novels, plays, poems that grapple with timeless themes and stimulate critical thinking. It's about going beyond just reading excerpts or summaries.
Oh, I see.
And truly engaging with these powerful texts.
This is where she pushes back against the over-reliance on textbooks, which she sees as often presenting watered-down or homogenized versions of history and literature.
Yeah.
It's a call to engage with the complexity and nuance of these subjects.
Exactly. She challenges us to ask, are we truly equipping students with the knowledge and critical thinking skills they need to navigate a complex and rapidly changing world?
Right.
And for her, a national curriculum is a way to address that question head on.
It's important to note that she doesn't see this as replacing the role of skilled teachers.
No.
Instead, it would provide them with a strong foundation to build upon. A shared roadmap to ensure all students, regardless of their zip code, have access to a quality education.
Think of it like a set of blueprints for a house.
Okay.
It doesn't dictate the exact design or the decorative elements, but it ensures that all houses have a solid foundation and meet certain standards of quality.
Of course, creating and implementing a national curriculum would be a monumental task.
That would be.
There would be numerous challenges.
Definitely.
From navigating political disagreements to ensuring that the curriculum remains relevant and adaptable over time.
Ravitch acknowledges those hurdles. It would require careful consideration, robust debate, and a commitment to keeping the focus on what's best for students. But for her, the potential to raise the bar for all schools and ensure all students have access to a rich and challenging education makes it a worthwhile endeavor.
So as we conclude our deep dive into Diane Ravitch's The Death and Life of the Great American School System, we encourage you to ponder her insights. Consider the challenges she highlights, her call to return to the fundamentals of good education, and her thought-provoking proposal for a national curriculum.
Most importantly, as you navigate your own journey through the world of education, keep asking those critical questions. What kind of education do we want for our children? What truly matters in preparing them for life beyond the classroom?
Ravitch's book provides a compelling framework for these discussions, and we highly recommend picking up a copy. You'll find a link in our show notes.
And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into thought-provoking books that challenge assumptions and spark meaningful conversations. Until next time, keep those minds engaged, and remember, lifelong learning is the key to a vibrant, informed life.